G'day guys, welcome to the latest episode of Beyond the Tape podcast, a podcast that focuses on people doing rad things in the Australian mountain bike industry. This episode is a pretty rad one from a little known kind of parts maker here in Australia. But before we jump on too far, let's talk about some supporters of the podcast. We've got Canyon Bicycles. Those guys come a big way for 2021. They're helping me out, helping the podcast keep running. So if you want to support them, jump over to canyonbikes.com. All support and all sales and stuff are handled through the guys in Melbourne, Australia. So if you need any support or anything else, you don't have to be waiting for the German timeframes or anything. All the guys from Canyon Australia are epically good at their job. So hit them up if you've got any questions. Two Up Bike Co. They've come on board for 2021. They do Noble, they do Factor components, and they do DuPont lubricants. They also do Shimano saddles as well. So if you're want to hit them up for any product, jump over to their website, send them an email, or get onto your local shop. Support your local and get them to order some stuff in. We've also got NS Dynamics. They're Australia's premium suspension servicing company. I use them all the time through work. I use them on all my personal products, and you can't get a better service in Australia. I sent a Cane Creek double barrel up there the other day for a customer. Took them within 3 hours of getting it to servicing it to sending it back. So those guys have turned it around in a super good time frame for a customer and ready to go shred in Medina. If you're looking to go shred in some super comfortable clothing, look at hucktheworld.com.au. Those guys are doing some rad tech tees, some shorts. They do these rad cotton tees and their socks that kill for. I've been running their stuff for ages, sleep in it, work in it, ride in it. It's amazingly comfortable. I would use it for my skin if I could. The last supporter of the podcast this year is going to be Dirt Surfer. Those guys do 100% recycled mud guards for your bike. They do custom stuff as well. So if you want to get your brand, your shop, whatever, put on a mud guard like I have for the Nick Hills, aka Hills Hoist collab, then do that. Anyway, that's enough of the sponsors. That's enough of an intro. We've got WRP, Williams Racing Products, aka Michael Williams, on board for this one. We talk about his racing career, BMX, mountain biking, his kind of philosophies on sponsorship and his way of helping out young crew. We talk about his products, obviously. So he does some really cool stems. He does some really cool stuff for you, like Commensals, your Metas, your Canyons. Like, he'll do some really cool stuff to help get that tweaked the way you want it. Anyway, grab a beer, grab a water, grab wine, grab whatever makes you happy, and enjoy the podcast. Look forward to your feedback. Michael Williams, WRP for Williams Racing Products. Welcome to the podcast.
Thanks, mate. Thanks for having me on.
No, it's all right. It's been like kind of short. I've only kind of come across your stuff for like the last 6 months.
Yep.
And then, yeah, it's good to kind of chat with you and get you on board. It's been rad.
Yeah, no, I'm glad even if it's been only 6 months or whatever, it's like, well, WRP hasn't really been sort of around that long. So 6 months, you be one of the founding followers, mate.
I think I'm just on Instagram too much, eh? I'm always at like forefront.
Yeah.
So for those who don't just sit on Instagram all day, who are you and what do you kind of do? Like, give us a bit of background.
I guess to give the best kind of background, I mean, I'm a bike rider sort of through and through. That's kind of what I've done my whole life. So, grew up racing BMX. So I started racing when I was like 3. It was kind of it's a funny story actually. My old man was like hardcore windsurfer when he was like my age now. And had me and my younger brother, and I think he was 33, and I'm nowhere near 33 yet, mind you. He was 33 at the time and had a windsurfing accident. Tore his knee apart, did sort of every ligament in his knee. So had a full knee reco, all that. And then the surgeon had told him to get into some type of cycling because it was low impact, but moving the knee around. And I guess being that age at the time and having two young boys, BMX was a natural kind of progression. And then, we were just kind of like club riders or whatever. And then in 2001, so I was 8, the state championships actually came to Warrnambool BMX Club. That's where I grew up. Not in Warrnambool, but like sort of near Port Fairy. So the states actually came to Warrnambool BMX Club. So it was kind of a no-brainer to enter me and my brother in the states. So we raced that, and then I guess that really kick-started sort of the BMX thing, because at the time, like, we were just on sort of club equipment, all that. Like, I remember, for instance, the kid that won the 8 boys, Sean Carlos, and like I was so envious of him because he beat us all by like half a straight, but he was the only one on clips, for instance.
Yeah, okay. Yeah.
And blew us all out of the water. And I think that was kind of the first race that, particularly Dad, like, I guess it's seen sort of the potential sort of, I don't know, just kind of navigating the way through the sport.
Yeah.
So, sort of deviated off track there a little bit, I guess. But, BMX was kind of our family's thing all the way up, certainly until sort of I left home. My brother got into mountain biking when he was sort of mid-teens and was actually like, real good. And then his sort of energy pretty well just turned all to the Defence Force stuff when he was sort of late teens. So put bike riding kind of on the back foot. I kept racing BMX into my uni years. So like this finished high school, took a gap year, and then went off to uni.
Yeah.
Raced BMX while I was at uni. So did a couple of world champs just in age class. And then last year uni, it was actually kind of funny. I got offered a scholarship. Like, I studied engineering at university, and I got offered a scholarship to go to the States to study for a semester in Florida. It worked. Like, honestly, it was like a stars aligning type thing. And I was kind of umming and ahhing whether to go, and in hindsight, it was the best thing I ever did in my life. Went over there, and kind of funny story, because like university back here, because all the grading rubrics are different. The university back here for your grades that they see over there is just a pass or a fail. They actually don't get a grade. So basically, if I just passed the subjects in Florida, it was 100%. Like, Deakin Uni back here thought I got 100%. So I was like, all right, well, like, I did all right, but just passing, and pretty well just lived a professional BMX's life, so to speak. Raced a couple of World Cups, and that sort of took it really serious while I was there. And it was actually kind of funny. The first time I'd ridden a proper mountain bike was actually right at the end of that trip. So ended up kind of staying a little bit longer than I thought. It was like 7 or 8 months or whatever. And then at the very end of that trip, I was in California and ended up going up to Big Bear with Barry Nobles and a couple of the boys. Sick. And it just blew my mind. I was like, whoa, like this exists. Like, this is crazy. And at that point, like, I'd been racing BMX for 19 years, and I was like, so like, loved BMX, but at the same time I was like, whoa, this actually kind of exists. And then came home, finished uni, and then just sort of the mountain biking thing steamrolled. And I don't know, I didn't necessarily see it as a competitive thing to begin with, but if there's a point in time or an excuse to progress in something, then I'm kind of really attracted to that. So obviously I was probably as quick as I was ever going to get with BMX. Like, there's always little stuff you can work on, obviously. But as soon as mountain biking came along, I was like, I suck at this, but I want to get real good. Like, I want to get good. So it was a natural sort of progression, I think.
Yeah, it seems like there's something to do with like anyone that races like a bike, whether it's moto or BMX or whatever. Yeah. As soon as they take up mountain biking as a hobby, it doesn't take long for it to escalate very quickly.
Yeah, that's it. Oh, it's just so fun. Like, and it's accessible too. Like, I remember always saying like how accessible BMX was, and like mountain biking so much more accessible than BMX. Like,
100%.
Like, you can ride pretty well anywhere. Like, particularly trail bikes these days are so capable. Like if you're a trail bike, you're pretty well any town you live in, you can have fun. So
100%. Like, what was the BMX scene like back? If we wind back a bit, like
Yeah.
back when you were 3 to what was it 19 years, 3 to 21?
Yeah.
But like these days, you got 5 or 6 year olds racing on full carbon frames.
Yeah, it's crazy, hey. And I know people that were like, big 80s BMX racers will say the same about my generation. But I think
exactly.
But I think like even more so, it's been an exponential kind of increase in technology and whatever, particularly over the last, say, like 10 years, 15 years. It's just crazy. Like I remember, it's probably actually a good point to talk about because like I said, like I got into just local club racing when I was 3, and then we just kind of tinkered along there, and it was just kind of a natural progression, but only at a club level until I was 8. And then, that was sort of me and my brother's first state champs. And then it's kind of funny because when you're in it at the time, you don't really realize, but looking back at it in hindsight, the difference of like competitiveness that I was and like the equipment that I was on between like 8 and 9 was just massive, because I think, certainly opened my parents' eyes to like, these other kids are on such good equipment, whatever. But I remember at the time, I'll never forget it because there was this other guy at the club, and his kids, his eldest son was 4 years older than me, and he was really, really fast. Trent Harmon was his name. If he ever watches this, it's a bit of shout out. But I remember his dad was, they were kind of getting out of the sport at the time. And Dad had two of their bikes for sale. And I'll never forget it because I remember my old man on the phone at the time, and both bikes were, my brother's bike was a full aluminium power light, and mine, I think it was I think they were a European company, but the company was called Rocket, and it was full alloy. And just like full alloy everything, but like velocity rims, like answer forks, like all that type of stuff. And at the time, both of those bikes were $1,000. And I remember rocking up to the club, like say the next weekend, like me and my brother rocked up, and like they were the best 2 bikes at the club type of thing.
Okay.
It was like, I don't know, felt amazing for a 9-year-old to be sort of on that stuff.
Yeah.
And like it was great equipment, but even compared to now, like some of the quote unquote like moto dads of BMX drop some insane coin on 5-year-olds bikes. Like
it's ridiculous.
Yeah, it is. Like I remember, and I think it's actually come into BMX now, and don't hold me to this because I've been out of the scene a little bit, but I think now it's come into Australia. But I remember back in 2016 when I was in the States racing BMX, they had just bought in the no clips for under 12-year-olds. And I think that's the best idea like ever. Even if there was I don't want to be sort of too stringent, but even if there was like an equipment cap on, because it's crazy because BMX is it should be an accessible sport. And basically what it gave rise to with no clips under 12 was that like some kid off the street could rock up on his bike, like if he was from a lower, like he or she was from a lower socioeconomic status or whatever, and could rock up and still be somewhat competitive, because clips in BMX in particular just give you like such an advantage.
Oh, for
Even
sure.
when you're particularly when you're young, and you can't lay down a heap of power, and you're sort of still forming sort of how you actually lay power down. It's kind of that thing, like 10% of not much power is, it's not much at all.
Yeah, exactly.
I don't know how much extra power clips give you, but certainly if you're under 12 and you've got clips, you're going to blow the competition away. So I kind of digressed a little bit, I guess, but certainly it is crazy in BMX the amount of coin that the moto dads are dropping.
Did they have like limited gear ratios and stuff like that back in as well, or even now?
Not that I'm aware of, no.
Yeah, okay.
I mean, the limited gear ratio I've always, like the limited gear ratio, say in track cycling, I've always found to be, like, I understand it, but I've always found it to be a little bit weird because it cuts people out that are either really small or really big. But yeah.
Yeah, I just wanted to know because, yeah, road cycling, track cycling, you both have limited gear ratios, but
Yeah.
in BMX, it must be all the same. Yeah,
Yeah,
I do agree with like the equipment cap because that would be sick.
Particularly like because BMX is there to be accessible, like, and I don't know, like I remember there was kids say, I mean, I saw it firsthand. Like there was a couple of kids at Warrnambool that would rock up on their skate park bikes, and they could jump and manual and everything, all better than the races. And they would have been fine to, like, you know, an aluminium bike or carbon bike's obviously going to be a little bit lighter than a chromo park bike, but stuff like clips is just a massive one. So yeah, I don't know. There's even been a lot of pushback from kind of the hardcore BMX. Like, kind of get it. Like everything's a double-edged sword, but even like with bitumen berms, there's been pushback from the hardcore guys that are like, oh, you know, it should be dirt because it teaches you to ride the dirt turns, whereas asphalt, like, you have 1 3/8 tires on, like it's going to grip up, no worries anyway. And even with 8 meter hills, like I'm a fan of an 8 meter hill. Like it feels amazing when you ride an 8 meter hill. But I also think it can detract from some other things too.
Is it? We'll go down this route because it's fun.
Yeah, go for it.
Like, is it almost getting too fast? Like that's one thing I've heard from like a lot of BMXs. Like you look at what's happened in the last kind of few years with a few BMX races. Like you look at Kai, Sakaibarra, and then obviously you've got just had his name in my head.
What, Sam Willoughby?
Yeah, that's one. Yeah, I don't know why I couldn't remember that. I kept wanting to say Sam Hill.
Yeah.
But they both had like massive accidents, like just from speed and head impact, right? It was,
I think it's like sort of any form of riding, like whether it be moto or BMX or downhill or whatever, like things can be big and fast and it can just be as safe as anything else. I think it just depends how it's built. And that's where, like, kind of to digress a little bit, where I'm such a fan of guys that can build trails really well, like the guys from Elevate and Dirt Art and stuff like that. It's insane because you go to Gorge Road, for instance, and it's like you roll in and the flow works so well that unless you do something catastrophic where you're going to put your brakes on and stop, you'll flow through it fine sort of anyway because it's built well. But back to BMX and whether it's sort of, I think this is just my personal opinion. I think there's a couple of design things that could be tweaked out and it could be a lot safer.
Yeah, okay.
Because 100% there's more dangerous stuff, way more dangerous stuff on mountain bike courses where nobody's been hurt.
Yeah, for sure.
Yeah, again, it depends how it's built. Like, for instance, I'm not really a fan of the kink on an 8 meter. Like, not the kink like 12 feet from the gate. Like, I mean the transition at the bottom.
Yeah,
not really a fan of it because you can't pedal through it, and not that you want to pedal through it necessarily. Even though, well, before 2016 Olympics, Maris Strombergs was training to pedal through it because they were actually, the Latvian team were based in Florida for a few months, and they were messing around with gearings to see if they could get the right pedal roll out so they could pedal through the kink. And like firsthand saw some of them come some really, really nasty crashes. Like, would have made up some time if they could do it, I guess. But like, for instance, that's just, in my opinion, it's a little bit of a design, not flaw, but if they wanted to cut down on crashes, I think that's one thing they could look at. Because you see all the time is, particularly with people learning an 8 meter, I'm not saying the elites, like the elites get through it, okay. But say if you're like a 15, 16-year-old kid, like going up to junior elite and you're about to ride an 8 meter in a couple of years, I have seen a fair bit where they like get to the kink and G out, and they've G'd out, like they go soft in the legs, and then within 15 feet or so, you've got, well, actually, they put a rule on that now. And I can't remember what the ruling is, but the lip of the first jump has to be within a certain distance of the kink, like of the transition. Okay. I used to know the distance, but call it 20 feet, like whatever. It has to be, and I think it's even shorter than that. But like if you G out and like your knees give way, and then you've got a face, an up ramp coming straight at you, and it's a clear double.
Yeah.
That's not going to end well at all. And you add to that 7 other guys beside you. It becomes a little bit out of your control. Like I had a crash at a North American Supercross race at Rock Hill in South Carolina, where exactly this happened. Like not the G out, but I was out of lane 1, so I was like right on the inside.
Mm-hmm.
And the other thing with Rock Hill is that the pro straight, like the 8 meter hill, is to the right of the 5 meter hill. So what it means is if you're out of lane 1, you've naturally kind of got to drift left down the first straight to stay in lane 1, so to speak. Like if you just went straight ahead, by the time you got to the end of the first straight, you might be in like lane 5 or 6. Anyway, gated fine, got to the bottom, and I was kind of like mid-pack, say. And the rider beside me, like out of lane 2, he was obviously just trying to make room, but he had come over, like we'd hit the lip fine, like lane 1, lane 2, but he just kind of drifted in the air and like hit me mid-air, and I had nowhere to go. Like anywhere I could have gone, even if I had predicted it early, would have just been into the grass on the side, like off the track. And so I like tried to hang on to it, like kind of tried to muscle it out, but crashed like real bad. Had a pretty nasty concussion actually, and it was something that was totally out of my control because it was just another rider's sort of doing it. And I think that's one thing with mountain biking that's a little bit less dangerous. Like of course you can have a big crash, but it's always you at fault. Like you've got no one else but to blame but yourself. But in a case like that, I think it's it can certainly be out of your hands.
For sure.
Yeah, I like back to the question, I guess. Like I don't think speed is the issue. I think it's just how things are designed. And again, shout out to the really good trail builders out there because they know what they're doing. Yeah.
And
but I guess just in closing, like at the end of the day, riding any form of bike is dangerous. Like they're always going to be
ridiculous. Yeah.
Anomalies where people get injured. So
it's funny. Like I went to the doctor yesterday. Because I can't feel my fingers in my left hand just from a random nerve impact. Just from the other day. And he's like, I'm like, I don't think I've done my scaphoid. I've done 3 of them. I know what it feels like.
Yeah.
I know what a broken bid. I know what it feels like. He's like, why do you keep hurting yourself?
Because
it's fun, man. Like, I just want to ride my bike. Yeah. People don't get that.
Yeah, it is. I saw a thing just before actually on while I was kind of waiting to come in here. But Remy Morton did a thing with Red Bull Australia instant that he took over was I think someone asked like, how do you recover from big crash, whatever, and I think he's probably the best person to ask. But crazy, absolutely crazy. But like on that point, I think his advice was you got to get back on the horse, so to speak, and I think it's like that's so true. But I'll kind of give every mountain biker a bit of a shout out here, or every bike rider, whether it's moto or BMX or whatever. I don't know. They're a pretty tough breed, hey? Like you were saying, like people keep getting banged up and just come back. Like it's something about riding that's so addictive that it's funny. Like people smash themselves up, and I'm like, I swear any other sport people would have given this away by now. Like they would have been saying this is stupid. I'm finding something else. I'm refusing to bang myself up so much.
Yeah. And like without giving like the whole tough guy thing, someone cut themselves. I can't remember where it was. Like scratched themselves somewhere.
Yeah.
And they're like making a big deal out of it and needing a Band-Aid and stuff. And I just looked at them. If I'd needed a Band-Aid for all of my cuts, like I'd be broke. I wouldn't be able to do anything else.
Well, and the kids surprised me too, dude. Like I remember when I kind of look at it now, being mid-20s, even compared to when I was 15 or 16. Like I did some stuff when I was 15 or 16 that I would not even think about now. Because I was like, I'll bounce, or I'll be able to jump off that, or like I'll be able to bail. Like I'm scared of bailing now. Like I don't like bailing. Whereas like 15 or 16, if you went to a big set of dirt jumps, like, I'll just bail. But sort of back to the point, like some of these kids, like I help out a few kids down here on the coast, and dude, some of like the 10, 12-year-olds, just, I don't know. Like I was out riding with this little family that I kind of help out coaching the other day, and we're out riding the Aries Inlet loop, and Jet's 10, and I'm not like exaggerating this. He come off, right, and to put in perspective how hard he hit, like the chain ring cut this tree. Like the tree was probably like I don't know, 3.5, 4 inches round. And he like the chain ring cut the tree in half, like he hit it that hard. Shit. And he went pinging through the bush. And I'm thinking, oh no, like this is bad. And he's 10 and his dad's there and his mum's there and I'm gonna get buddy. And he gets up, he's like, oh, that's sick, and kept riding the whole track. Like, dude, if I did that, I would have like
in a helicopter. Like,
game
exactly.
over. Yeah. Exactly. So yeah, they surprised me, and just like the goal of some of these kids, like they're so amped on riding, and like to me that's what makes it all worth it. That's sick to see.
Yeah, it's kind of, I don't know, when you were racing and when you started, like obviously your dad kind of got you into it and stuff.
Yeah.
But were you like aiming to go pro, or were you just so stoked on it, like you just kept going?
Honestly, there was never really. Of course, when you're growing up, like 10, 12, and then into your teens, it's like, oh, yeah, I want to be a pro. But there was never any pressure or whatever to, like, I don't know. It was just, we were just stoked on riding. And I think the other thing, I guess, was everything, which kind of surprises me now, everything seemed so far away. Like, I remember the first nationals I did were actually in Adelaide, and I was 10, so it was 03.
Okay.
I remember we drove over to Adelaide, and this goes back to what I was saying before about just progressing through the sport, I guess. I had, like, at 10, I'd never properly jumped. Like, I'd jumped stuff, but, like, at Warrnambool BMX Club, like, there were jumps. Like, don't get me wrong, there were jumps, but most of the jumps that I had the capability to do were just like little tabletops and stuff like that. So I had jumped, but it was pretty mediocre. Like nothing was going to go wrong. It was more like a weightless kind of, like just getting an air over a roller type thing.
Yeah.
And I remember we went to Adelaide when I was 10, and some of the board, I think there was only, there was only one. And what was his bloody name? I can't remember now. Adam Shields. He in the final. I didn't make the final. But in the final of 10 boys, there was on the second straight. There was this huge step up, huge at the time, but I guarantee, like we still got the VHS at home, and it was gnarly because it was really sniper too, like up ramp and down ramp. There was this big step up into this double. And none of the 10-year-old boys had jumped it. No one in practice, no one in motos or whatever. And in the final, he came out and jumped it. Like just cold turkey, come out and jumped it and aced it like it's silk. Yeah. And I remember my old man like saying to my mum and me and my brother like in the stands, because we were watching it obviously.
Yeah.
I should say at that time, Sam Willoughby was 12 and he won the nationals that year as well.
Okay.
And that was the first time my mum and dad had ever seen Sam Willoughby ride. And at 12, it was insane. Like, he was triple manual and stuff and everything. Like we were just blown away, and he was a little guy too.
Yeah.
Just blown away. Like, who is this kid? But anyway, I still remember Dad turning to Mum and being like, right, like if Mick and Matt are going to be successful, they have to learn how to jump and manual.
Yeah.
And again, at the time, I was just like, oh yeah, cool. And this goes to show sort of the natural progression, I guess, because there wasn't any pressure. Like
Yeah.
we were so green-eyed to it, I guess. But yeah, we got home from Adelaide, and yeah, Dad got the tractor out and started building doubles.
So good.
And then it escalated into more jumps, and then Dad, because Dad works for a large electricity company, and he poached not poached, like he got it legally. I'm not he got a street lamp, like a street lantern, and made up this boom for the front of the tractor so we could hoist the street lantern up, like at street lantern height. So, you know, it's bloody high, 10 meters or so high. And we could light up the whole paddock and the whole jumps paddock. And then we ended up starting to have everyone from Warrnambool BMX Club wanting to come out and whatever. So it was a natural kind of progression. But yeah, never any huge pressure. It was just, but yeah, I mean, we're just from a small town, so we just rode for the fun of it. It was good.
How's the commitment from your dad though? Like that's next level.
Mate, he gets around it. He's a bit of a frother. Like, all my mates, yeah, I think wish they had my dad as a dad. Like he was about it. Like, yeah, he was, whatever the boys were doing, he needed to be into it too. And I think that's what spurred on the BMX thing, because like when me and my brother were racing, he was racing. Yeah, he was as keen as anyone. And the jumps in the paddock, to be brutally honest, the jumps in the paddock were just as much for me and my brother as they were for him. Like he was out there at 5 a.m. practicing manuals. And this is now someone that's, 40, like, out there, like getting mum out there with the video camera, like, come on, you gotta video this. It's like, yeah, old dog and new tricks.
It still happens though. Like I see it all the time. Hey, like
yeah,
the kid gets a bike because he wants to get into it, and literally like 2 races later, the dad's got a bike because they're like, "Why am I not doing this? This is sick."
Yep. No, that's it. I mean, he like Dad always grew up doing stuff. Like was riding the motos when he was younger, and obviously the windsurfing stuff and all that. But yeah, I remember him saying to me when I was 10 or so, like, I wish I'd have found BMX earlier, just because of the skills that it gave you and the community and all that type of stuff, and just, I guess, the avenues that it leads you into as well. Like you look at a lot of mountain bikers, obviously, but road cyclists or track cyclists or whatever, even like moto guys like Jeremy McGrath and all that, like have a BMX background. So yeah, I don't know. It's cool.
Yeah. It's crazy what like a BMXer on a track bike, it's next level. You can tell like straight away that they just don't care and they just put all their power out. It's
yeah. Well, who was the guy a few years ago now, like 04 or whatever, Kieran Perkins or whatever? He was an animal.
Yeah. And how far did you kind of BMX career go then? Like you mentioned you went to the US and like you did some worlds and stuff.
BMX, and it's like in no way insinuating any like excuses or anything like that. But I never lived as a pro BMXer, so to speak. But like nor do many people other than the cream of the crop. I guess as far as my BMX career went was the time that I spent in the States. Like that was because that was my best chance to give it a proper shot. Because I guess throughout my teens I raced fairly heavily, like, trained every day type thing. But again, it was just fun. Like it was just, I wouldn't have been doing anything else. And yeah, like, race states, race nationals. Didn't race nationals like every year. Like, when we could afford it, we'd go to nationals and stuff like that. And then, to be honest with you, I really, like, it's good we're talking about this stuff because I don't really think about it Like I don't really reflect on it a lot sometimes, I guess. But yeah, like the end of high school, like VCE, I pretty well, like I still rode, but I pretty well dropped away from competitive BMX, I guess. Just, yeah, I don't know, like I was focusing on school and stuff. And I should say, to add to that, because I was from Warrnambool, like if I had lived in Melbourne, it would be possible to do school, and then your club races are pretty well like a state race. Being from Warrnambool, like I was still racing clubbies and that, but yeah, the time to go to Melbourne and race and whatever just wasn't really worth it. So I guess in some ways sort of dropped away from BMX, and then it was really sort of my gap year, so 18, 19 years old, that I got back into it. So yeah, like I raced junior elite, like as 16, I raced junior elite when I was 16. Yeah. And then like 16 turning 17, but I was 16 at the time when nationals rolled around. And then second year junior elite, I didn't race. I think they were in Queensland. I think. Okay. I might be wrong on that, but yeah, I didn't race because I was in year 12 at the time. And then yeah, it was really my gap year that I was doing a lot of riding, or just a lot of exercise in general. Like I was sport and rec trainee at my high school and whatever, so I was like surfing and rock climbing, just doing everything. So yeah, really got back into fitness stuff. And yeah, at the time, I guess wasn't really fast enough to come straight back into AA, so came back into A Pro and yeah, won a couple of races and stuff, like, you know, at a like a Melbourne level, I guess. So pretty well like, you know, state series level, I guess you'd say. And then that kind of steamrolled a little bit, and then started racing AA into sort of first couple of years of uni. And then, yeah, when I did two world champs while I was at uni. They were age class world champs. They weren't elite world champs, which was really good. Like, yeah, I like, you know, I wouldn't lie, like I was putting a lot of training into them. And the first world champs I did was the first time I ever went overseas, and that was a bit of an eye opener, just to the riding scene and what's out there and the people you meet and the race format, and just like it was a childhood dream of mine to go and race a Worlds. Like growing up it was like, well, put it this way. So when I grew up, there was a mate of mine who's 3 years older than me, Ash McCutcheon, and I'll give Ash a bit of a shout out here, but he, like no joke, he won a world championship when he was 16 years old. Yeah, 16 boys world champion in Brazil, and that was insane. Like it still gives me tingles now, because like our family, like literally in tears of happiness for him. Like that's massive, like huge. And I was say 13 at the time. And it was like, whoa, like if I ever get to race a world championship, just to be there, like that'll be life-changing for me. So, yeah, going to Rotterdam, like in the Netherlands, like, yeah, it was age class and I was young and whatever, like young for me, I guess. Yeah, it was just the experience alone was amazing. So, yeah, I went back the next year to Belgium and raced. And then, yeah, then it kind of started to snowball with a few things. Like the year after that was the US stuff, and that's when I really tried to give elite a crack. Yeah, because I mean, to go back to your point earlier, I guess talking about BMX and stuff. Of course, like the guys that are cream of the crop, like Sam Willoughby and that, transition from junior elite to elite and do really well. And it's the same in downhill as well. Yeah. But, for people that aren't like a factory rider, so to speak, that say live, you know, that go to school or have a job or, you know, whatever, like you've got to be a standout junior elite rider to give it a really good crack in elite.
For sure.
For me, it took a couple of years of training and sort of finding my feet post junior elite, like in age class. It was like a good progression for me, I guess. Like by the time I found by the time I actually got to like an elite level in BMX, I was mature and competitive and that type of stuff. Like, I guess why I'm saying all this is it's really funny because I was like growing up, like in age class within, to give people a bit of a picture, like throughout age class and then up until junior elite at a state level, I'll say like top 4. Like there was always 4 or 5 of us that were always going to be, I should say there were 2 standouts, like Sean Carlos and Jamie Mahoika from Shepparton. They were the 2 standouts. Like they were always quick. And then there was another couple of us that we were always going to be top 4 or 5, but any one of us could win. So it was kind of at that level. And what's funny now is like being mid-20s, I'm the only one of them left. And I kind of find that sad. And like for sure, like it's not, if it's their own doing and own choice, then that like 100%, like that's great. But sometimes I feel, there's a lot of pressure to go like junior elite straight to elite. A lot of the time, like only the cream of the crop do really well, and like good on them. I'm not blaming anything, but it's bloody hard. Like you can be a really good rider, but not stand out, and really struggle kind of finding your feet in elite. Like I kind of feel for guys that were certainly quicker than me who sort of aren't racing anymore.
But is it like in mountain biking, like you have your expert riders, which are pretty damn good. Most of them are pretty all right. And then you have your elite riders, but you have, say, a few of those guys which are really quick. And then like you'll have Troy Brosnan, Conor Fearon come out here in Adelaide, for example.
Like everyone.
Yeah, but they're not trying. Like they're still chill and they just it's a daily ride for them to win. So is it the same in BMX when you were growing up, or?
Yeah, for sure. I mean, like it depends on it depends on the caliber and the depth of the field, of course. But like, absolutely, there are guys that rock up that are like, just unbelievable to smoke you. Like I've always said, like you can tell when someone rocks up to a race that's like, I remember, for instance, there was this annual race down at Warrnambool called the Warrnambool Classic. Like,
okay,
they put a lot of thought into the name, but I think I was 8. If I wasn't 8, I was around that age anyway. And like one of my childhood heroes, Kalen Young, he rocked up to the Warrnambool Classic.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah.
And no disrespect to any of the other elites, because like they're fantastic riders, but he smoked them. Like, I remember like he was that confident. This is a true story. He was that confident. In the final, he chose lane 8, which isn't uncommon. Like some guys choose lane 8 to showboat. Chose lane 8, right? He's on the gate, and the call starts, and he unclips and he hooked his bike over the gate. So it couldn't, hooked his bike over the gate and goes, hang on a sec, I need to piss. And went behind the hill, did what he needed to, come back, and everyone just stopped for him. And it was like everyone knew that he was the dude.
Yeah, okay, yeah.
You've got guys that rock up like that, just, smoke the field. So I guess, I've always loved riding. But I'd say at the same time, it never really came that easy to me as well. But it's always sort of given me the aspiration to keep training and keep riding and just keep doing it.
And then you found mountain bikes, like that kind of did that reinvigorate you, or was it just like
it's just another excuse to ride. In all honesty, like I just get stoked on riding, and that's kind of the thing with BMX. And it's not dissing BMX at all, but BMX is kind of pretty confining. Like, and the other thing is not very like cross-pollinated either. Like you're either a park rider or you're a racer, or like. Whereas I always wanted to do, and it's by no means proclaiming that I was any good at all of them, but I always wanted to be able to do everything. Like I never wanted to rock up to the skate park and not be able to hold my own, because I felt like I'd feel as though I'd like be a sellout, because like a lot of, I'm not sure if it's still the same way, but I certainly know at Warrnambool it'd be like, you know, if you rocked up the skate park, it was very easy for a lot of the guys to be like, oh, it's just a racer, like can't ride park thing, and like fair enough, whatever. But I guess from growing up, I always wanted to be just to be able to hold my own. Like I didn't want to be, you know, I kind of wanted to be able to be an all rounder, like ride everything. Whereas BMX, yeah, it's really only racing and park. Like there's dirt, obviously, but where I grew up, there wasn't really much dirt.
Yeah.
And then mountain biking was just like this whole other world, like because there's so many disciplines, and it's just an excuse to go riding and
have
just
fun,
spread your wings a little bit. Like even for instance, like I never thought I'd be into road cycling. Like I've always kind of bagged road cyclists out, and still kind of do, but it's so good for your fitness though. Like it's crazy. And I bought a roadie at around Christmas time, like Christmas last year.
Yeah.
Because I live on the Great Ocean Road, so it would be stupid not to have a road bike.
Yeah.
And I remember the first ride I had on it, I was like, oh no, I don't think this is for me, because I was so unfit, like so like road unfit. Like I was like, what is this? Like I'm over the bars, I'm crammed, like what is going on? But yeah, I love it now. Like
go and punch out 100 Ks and relax for a few hours. Yeah,
it's good. Tick your heart over, and I don't know. It's just another excuse to ride, which I'm really stoked on.
And you did a bit of four-cross racing and stuff you mentioned before as well.
I've done one four-cross.
Yeah, okay.
No, it was kind of a funny story how four-cross last year turned out, because, so to give you a bit of an idea on the mountain biking thing, I probably, like, I'll admit it, like I probably chucked myself in the deep end too quickly. But what else are you going to do? Like, you either sink or swim. You might as well try to swim. Because like I say, like I raced BMX heavily in 2016, like, you know, elite level, like a couple of World Cups and that type of stuff. And then came back home to finish uni. And then 2017, I pretty well had off. Like I still rode, but I think I did one BMX race. But yeah, pretty well had off because, I was just kind of in a grad position and working and trying to save money and all that type of gear. And it just kind of snowballed, because at the end of 2017, moved back up to Melbourne. Well, up to Melbourne. You know, I went to uni in Geelong, so I moved up to Melbourne and bought a good mountain bike. Like I bought you'll love this actually, I bought a Canyon, bought an old Fender. And started to get into it with Melbourne crew like Dave Habich and all that. And pretty well, I went over to Queenstown. I'd been to Queenstown before, but I went over to Queenstown earlier in the year. Wanted to go to Queenstown, and they also had a race there, which happened to be Oceania Champs.
Okay.
Down at Dunedin. And went to Oshie's, which was an absolute rain out. But it was fun, like lined up. I think, like legit, there was a lot of people. Might not be half, but I wouldn't be exaggerating too much if I said half the field didn't start, because it was atrocious. If I hadn't paid so much money to go there, I wouldn't have started either. Like if it was my local race, I wouldn't have started either. But it was like, oh, this would be fun, and ended up getting enough UCI points to go race some World Cups in 2018. And it was kind of definitely chucking myself in the deep end. But went over and did it and learnt a lot. And it was one of the best years I've had as far as learning and that. Like I remember, so I did first World Cup, downhill World Cup I did with Leah Gang. And was pretty green to it all. And it was good. And then spent some time in the States and in Whistler, and pretty well just trained for I don't know, took training pretty seriously for a couple of months, because I'd planned to do, because I'd also qualified for Lebresse. I qualified for Mont Saint Anne and Lebresse, and Lebresse was the last World Cup of the year, and just sort of by happenstance, because I ended up getting my bike flogged, so I couldn't race Mont-Saint Anne, but ended up getting helped out by Commensale, which is kind of how I've been sort of riding all their stuff for the last few years, because they helped me out getting another bike, and so trained pretty hard sort of between sort of like the Pacific Northwest and Whistler and that for a good few months, and then raced Lebresse. And like the rider that I was at Lebresse compared to Leogang, like only a few months before, was like, yeah, insane. It was a quick learning curve for sure. But yeah, the whole four-cross thing came around because I came home kind of at the end of the season back to Melbourne, which I wasn't very happy about. Kind of working the desk jockey life, so I wasn't training near as much as what I was, and wanted to go back and do a few races again. And I'd qualified for a couple of downhill World Cups again. But yeah, I'd been riding my hardtail a lot, just around. Like I was living in the city, like in Melbourne, so I was just riding my hardtail a lot, just around the street and that type of stuff. And then I was coming down here to where I live now, like down the Surf Coast, because there's a decent four-cross track at Anglesey. And I was coming down here a fair bit to surf, and then obviously I'd have my bike with me as well, so I'd just ride the four-cross track. Like I'd often camp down here overnight and ride the four-cross track, get an early surf in, and then drive back to Melbourne to work, which lasted for 6-9 months or whatever.
Yeah, right.
And then I was ready to go back overseas again to race some downhill. And I was like I've got a bit of a BMX background, like done okay in BMX, done okay in mountain biking. Like I wonder what the deal is for four-cross. Like it's kind of fun. Like I've been riding my four-cross, well, my hardtail a bit.
Yeah.
So yeah, ended up getting an entry for four-cross Worlds, and I'll admit it now, like I was packing my pants because I was like, what have you got yourself into? Like,
yeah,
you are probably going to make a fool of yourself. Like you're going to rock up there and like whatever. And here's a funny one for you. So I was riding, because at the time I was riding my single speed hardtail, just riding jumps and that. And I was just like, oh, I'll just ride my hardtail. And then I started finding out all this information like, well, no, you need gears. And I was like, oh, hell, righto. It doesn't accommodate gears. So like I ended up getting a frame like a week before I left. I ended up getting an NS Lyre frame.
Mm-hmm.
And I built it up. I kid you not, I built it up like 2 days before I flew out because like I needed to run gears. So the first time I'd actually ridden the frame, I rode it around the street. But the first time I'd ridden the frame on like dirt or jumps or anything was actually at Four-Cross Worlds, which was at Val de Sol, and ended up doing better than I thought. I think better than I thought I would have. So I think I qualified 15th, and then made it through motos, and then I made it to quarterfinals. Yeah, I was kind of a little bit pissed because I felt like I could have done a lot better than I thought because I gated in quarterfinal. Because I didn't even know how four-cross worked. Like I rocked no joke. I rocked up. They weren't going to let me race because I rocked up in my Aussie jersey, but without any pads on underneath me, and I rocked up for qualies, and they're like, "No, you're going to get DQ'd." They're speaking obviously in Italian or French or whatever. And Scott Beaumont from the UK kind of piped up and he's like, no, let him ride. So I botched some armour and that together and ended up doing my quali and qualifying obviously. And then once it got to the race day, which was the next day, I didn't even know how the motos worked. Like I presumed it was going to be like BMX, like 3 or 4 motos and then into finals. So I came out first race. I was in front. I know that much. Like I was in first, and then I think I ended up getting second in the first moto, and then I got second in the second moto, and they're like, "Oh, like you're through to finals," and I'm like, "What? Like, don't we have another race or two to go before they decide who's finals?" And I was like, I was actually kind of glad that I was none the wiser because I had no time to like freak myself out or whatever.
Yeah.
Like, all right, cool, whatever. Through to finals, I guess. And yeah, I gated real well. I was like in like equal first, sort of out of the gate, but I was from an outside lane and kind of got pushed real high in the first turn. And then, yeah, it was just kind of a domino effect, like kind of hung in there and then it just kind of all went to shit. And then I had a crash. Like I ended up crashing in the last corner trying to kind of claw back a spot. But, yeah, I mean, it was my first sort of four-cross race. I was like, I'm a bit G'd up now because I'm like, oh, well, I actually put some training and I might do all right at that. And on a bike, I had more time on. But yeah, that was how the four-cross thing came out. It was just honestly just like another excuse to ride another discipline. I was like, if I'm going to be there anyway, like for downhill,
might as well do it.
It'd be cool to race. And I can't see why more people don't race it. Like I was saying, like they're there anyway. Just bloody chuck your hardtail in and just give it a shot. Like it's just another excuse. It's fun.
Well, they used to be like a part of the World Cup circuit.
So and like it's crazy.
Now it's different.
Like, they should be. Like
yeah.
I don't know. I'm all about it. It's cool. And the funny thing is, like, it's not part of the downhill World Cups anymore. But
No.
like slalom and all that is huge at Crankworks, and Crankworks is quickly in my opinion, like it's becoming way more popular. And like World Cups will always be World Cups. Don't get me wrong. Like they'll always have a place for World Cups, and I don't think, nothing can beat a feeling of a World Cup. But Crankworks certainly has its place. And by introducing stuff like pump track and slalom and whatever, like they're definitely doing a good thing there. So if I was the UCI and wanted to kind of regain some confidence within the riders, firstly, I'd have a look at the top 60 thing and maybe bring it back to top 80. But I'd also have a look at maybe introducing some four cross or something fun back into it. Like, it's just cool.
I'm like, the day they said that it stopped happening at World Cups, like, was honestly a dark day for me because I loved four cross, especially the old school stuff where it was like rocks and stuff. It was just stupid.
It was gnarly. Like, I know. I was saying, downhill bikes have come further in 10 years than four cross bikes have. But even still, like, some of the bikes you see people pinning down, like a legit. Some of the four cross tracks were like downhill tracks. And some of the lines too, like that's the other thing. Like some of the insides and whatever that used to be on some of the tracks is like I can't remember the race now. Dave will kill me for not remembering this, but there was a race a four cross World Cup that G Atherton won back in the day, and
was there one where he didn't?
And one of the insides that they were doing was hectic. I'm looking at it and like if it looks big on a video, it's big. I'm like, I don't know.
They used to have like this one where it was like a step up, step down into like a rock garden. Like it was just something stupid. Yeah. I miss that stuff so much. And now
for sure.
When you went and did the World Cup races, like the downhill stuff, were you just solo?
Pretty much, yeah. So the first year I went over, I was solo for kind of all of it. Like, obviously, people over there that you kind of tee up with and whatever. But, I was for sure solo, which makes it a little bit harder. But at the same time, kind of, I don't know, I always feel traveling with people is like it's good, but it's also bad. Like depending on who you go with. So the first year I was solo when I went to Leogang, and then met up with a couple of Aussies over there and whatever. And then the Lebresse World Cup that I did, I met up with Dave Habich over there, which was good because he was already in Europe. And then the second year, so last year when I went over, I was solo for the first. For the Europe stop, so four cross worlds, I was solo, but met up with guys over there like shout out to Jack Redding, who owns One Vision. He's a legend. He's helped me out a lot actually, because he's at all the World Cups, and I don't know. Seemed to. I met him like real early. I met him at Schladming actually in 2018, and I don't know. He just seemed to. We seem to get along well, so always helped me out. So, pitted with him and whatever at Val de Sol. I didn't end up racing Val de Sol downhill World Cup just because the scheduling with the four-cross was terrible. I think it's because of this thing, because it's not part of the calendar anymore. Yeah. Like, there is nobody that races both. And I was the only, as far as I know, I was the only one that was going to race both, at least in the men's category. And the timing just didn't work. I was like, if I'm going to give four-cross half a shot at all, I can't afford to do the downhill. Anyway.
And you don't want to do the downhill at Val de Sol half-assed.
No, hell no. No, that's exactly right. Particularly, I should say, because, like I was saying, like I literally had my dirt jumper. So the front brake I was using for four-cross was the front brake off my downhill bike. And
sick.
Even the cranks, like the cranks I had on my four-cross bike were the cranks I had for my downhill bike. Like, anyway, it was kind of funny. But then went over to Whistler like after oh no, that's right. Yeah, so he raced Val de Sol and then Lenzerheide was the next weekend. So raced Lenzerheide World Cup and then went to Whistler for a week. Met up with some mates from back home here, and then we travelled. That was really good. So it was two of us, and that was kind of the first World Cup. Well, first time racing sort of mountain bikes where like we were a proper group, which was kind of cool. So rode Whistler for a week, then went to Sun Peaks for a week, like Kamloops, all that, and then we road tripped it. We road tripped it from BC all the way to Snowshoe in West Virginia.
Shit.
Which was it was long. It was long, but it was kind of good because there was three of us. So to fly, we were going to have to pack all the bikes up, all our equipment up, whatever, and we're like, screw it, like we can drive there. It probably would have been better to fly, but it was a hell of a trip. It was fun, like real fun. Race Snowshoe, and then the US Open was actually the weekend after. So we hot-legged it from Snowshoe all the way back to Cali to race the US Open. But no, it was a good trip with the boys. It was sick.
Did you qualify for all those World Cups? Or
I've had a bad run, mate, to be honest. I don't know. It's a learning experience for sure, and like it's a level that's really high. Like I'll say that it's a level that's really high. I don't know whether it's. I mean, the level's high, and then also I guess you chuck into the mix of doing it as a privateer. Like it's hard to keep equipment up to scratch and just race logistics and all of that. Like it's really hard not to have something go wrong, I guess. Exactly, like especially when the darts you chuck into the dartboard aren't that many, if you know what I mean. Like I've only raced what would it be now? Like I've only raced 4 downhill World Cups. So like when you look at the chances of nothing going wrong, it's like what I guess I'm saying is the more races you do, the more opportunities you've got to have a shot at it, type thing. Whereas as a privateer, like it only comes down to money and how much you've got to spend and the amount of races you can do, and then of course sort of equipment and all of that. Like even I mean if you break a rim or whatever, you got to go buy a new one. So it's like you're not necessarily on the equipment of the pro guys and the factory guys and all that. So I've pretty well Leo gang. I had a mechanical with my chain guide, and then Lebresse was probably the best I was feeling. I had a little crash down the bottom, was more of just a tip over, but it was enough to cut some time out where it was pulled me back a little bit. Then Lenza Heidi had a mechanic with my chain, and then snowshoe had a crash in practice. Actually, I was feeling good at snowshoe, and I had a crash in practice and dislocated my finger. So I was kind of still wanted to race, but we taped my hand to the handlebar, but I couldn't hang on. I got the start gate. I literally rolled out of start gate. I'm like, nah, like this isn't going to run. So,
did you hit that crazy like left to right double at snowshoe?
Oh, the one over the rock?
Yeah.
Dude, that was gnarly. No, I didn't. Again, like this is kind of World Cup dynamics, I think, that are and we could talk about this forever, but like getting into A practice, I think would be the biggest step for like a privateer on World Cup. Like B practice, as just to paint the picture. So snowshoe, the day before first practice, pissed rain that night, and I was in B practice, like a lot of the privateer guys.
Yeah,
it wasn't that bad, but it was pretty slick. It was pretty slick. The first couple of runs were actually better than like towards the end of practice, because when it was properly slick, you knew it was properly slick, and the rocks, like whoever's seen footage of snowshoe, it's kind of like just baby head mossy rocks everywhere. So it actually wasn't too bad when it was slick. It got really bad when people started to ride it and dirt started to get dragged up onto the rocks, because then it was a double whammy. The rock double. Yeah, I forgot who it was. I think it was one of the US boys, but absolutely annihilated himself. It's on Cathro Vision.
Yeah, he snapped his fork crown.
Snapped his forks crown, yeah. And at that moment, we were like, oh, like that's pretty touching. It wasn't. The jump was fine. Like, it wasn't the jump. It was the corner before it, because the corner before it was just flat. And it was kind of off camber. It had a little rut starting to develop in it, but it was hard to hold the corner fast enough to where the jump was possible. Like the jump by itself, like it was a straight run into it. It's no drama. And then, of course, as soon as A practice came out, it had started to dry up a little bit, and the guys in A practice are the cream of the crop, obviously.
Yeah, they just did it. Yeah.
And as soon as one person hits it and creams it, everyone's like, just replicate that. But yeah, it takes someone to do it and cream it to know that it's kind of doable. Whereas, the B practice guys are certainly the guinea pigs of the group.
Yeah, it was that corner wanted to drive your left, hey, like it'd pull your left, and then the jump went right.
For sure. It was. And the other thing you got to remember too is who put it out. It was I think it was Stephen Walton from the States. They had like a Northwest, not a Northwest Cup, like a Northeast Cup there a few months ago. And he put up, I'm pretty sure it was him, put up a video, and it was hairy, man. Like, he come up short on it, and it was nothing. It's not discrediting his riding at all. Like, it was just one of these things by happenstance, kind of come up a little bit short on it, and like it looked gnarly on the iPhone. It looked gnarly, let alone being there in person. I'm like, oh God. I sent it to one of my mates who was Jacko White, who was tripping with us at the time. I'm like, dude, I'm glad I didn't do that when it was piss and rain. Like, now I know, like, how hairy that is, because as I was saying, it was the corner before it, but also the corner after it too, because it's kind of funny because you land and then you kind of went right and then 180 left.
Yeah.
So you didn't want to overjump it, because if you overjumped it, you were going through the corner. So anyway.
And just the Cathro vision of that lady or whoever it was that was the marshal at that point.
Yeah.
She looked so scared.
Oh, dude, that was a scary crash. Like, that could have ended real bad.
Everyone thought that guy was dead, hey? And he was just like, I went over the bars.
Yeah. So, no, I loved that track. It was a really, really, really good track. I was kind of a little bit disappointed I had a crash. It was just kind of a dumb crash. Like, I'd ridden that section 5 or 6 times and kind of creamed it. I didn't really even think about putting a foot down. It was just kind of a matter of circumstance because people were kind of, that's not pointing the finger at anything, but people kind of, there was sort of 2 ways into it. You kind of switch back into that sort of rock section, or you could hop up. You could kind of, you could bypass the switchback anyway. You kind of set up a little bit earlier and go up sort of over the 2 berms, and then the run to the rocks was pretty gnarly because you were coming right in on the left. But basically, yeah, you could delete 5 or 10 meters of the track before you, and it was just more direct. So I'd done that the first couple of runs, and yeah, kind of got to that section of track at the time, and there were people sort of standing on the back of the corners looking at it. So I couldn't do that line. So I had to go through the switchbacks, which I hadn't hit yet. So I kind of went through. I was like, oh shit, checked up for it a lot. So I sort of slowed up, went through it, and kind of hit it just from a different angle. And I remember thinking, I'm like, oh, you haven't hit it from this before. I'll just smoke it. Like just smoke it. Front end slipped on a rock, and it was all she wrote.
It's funny, like how you're in B practice and everyone's standing on the track looking at stuff while there's people riding.
Like I don't know, a little bit. Good. Yeah, it's kind of funny. Oh no, they weren't A guys standing on the track. It was other B practice people.
Yeah, that's what I mean. Like
yeah.
In A practice, that just wouldn't happen.
No, and that's exactly right, and that's what. Yeah, it's and it's not pointing the finger at anything specifically. I just think that, and this has been fairly vocal. Like Eddie Masters put out a podcast a while ago, like pretty vocal about. Actually, it might have just been an article, but put out something like pretty critical at the UCI. And you've only got to look at what happened to Brooke and stuff like that, where I think procedural things within the UCI are just behind the 8 ball, whether it be practice schedules or qualifying cuts or their medical staff. Like I think, and yeah, it's trying not to have a dig, but I think a few things can be up to par. Like particularly when you look at how good some other sort of organisations do it, whether it's the EWS or Crankworks or whatever. Like those guys are so on it these days.
I think because the UCI almost contracts out to the clubs.
Yeah, there's
always like this disconnect there of like it's just kind of left up to the clubs, and the UCI is like, well, it's downhill racing and we've made these rules, so clearly every club's going to be the same.
Yeah,
but clearly it is definitely not. Like it's funny you bring up the Brooke crash because it's the only time I got to mention this, but Brooke took 5 hours to get off the mountain, right?
Yeah.
And I actually I go to a gym with a helicopter pilot from that does that.
Oh yeah.
And he's like, in Adelaide or in South Australia, they have to be from on call or standby to in the air in 15 minutes. Doesn't matter what it is.
Right.
And he's like, we can get anywhere in Adelaide in under an hour.
Yeah, right.
So I was just like, 4 hours is next level.
It is. Yeah, it's crazy. And I think, I mean, if it's 4 or 5 hours because of a certain circumstance, then people, if you're up Everest and it takes bloody 5 hours, right. Okay,
yeah, for sure.
Understand. Yeah. But this is a World Cup in Mont Saint Anne. You've almost got to be not predicting, but you've got to be aware that something might happen. To not have a procedure in place is just crazy, in my opinion. Certainly makes you think. Up until that point, I guess as an athlete riding, it's just I don't know. I guess you put a lot of faith in the organisers that you don't want to think that something's going to go wrong. Otherwise you'll split yourself out. So you just you do put your faith in the organisation of the event. And I think after that incident, I think a lot of people racing at that level, whether they're privateers or factory riders, I think a lot of people took a step back and was like, shit,
yeah.
How safe am I? Am I willing to actually hurdle myself down the hill?
Yeah. So that UCI can get some Mercedes-Benz money. But we won't go too deep into that.
Yeah, no.
So you're racing downhill. you're obviously training for that, and you're working full time, and you go, you know what, I'm going to do some side hustle as well. How did Williams Racing Products kind of come about?
I'll say it, like I hate the term side hustle.
Yeah, I guess so.
Not having a dig. I just I use it.
My life is all side hustles, so that's all my jobs.
Well, I guess like I don't know. Life should be a hustle. So calling a side hustle, there shouldn't be a name for it. It's like having a name for the, like, I don't know. Yeah, it should be default side hustle. And if you're not anything but, you're just a little bit lazy. But no, I guess it depends how far back we kind of want to go with it. But I always grew up loving sort of the designer bikes. Like, just to give you a bit of, to paint the picture, I guess, like my old man's an engineer.
Mm-hmm.
His dad's an engineer, so my pa's an engineer. So I guess not proclaiming that I'm a fantastic engineer, but I guess just being interested in things has always kind of been in my blood, so to speak.
Mm-hmm.
So I always liked bike design and just equipment. Like, I remember the first thing I could properly draw, like that I could imitate drawing. I mean, like I always mucked around and drew stuff, like when I was a kid, just, you know, creative things. But the first thing that I could draw from imitation was a D2, like Troy Lee D2 helmet.
Okay, yes.
And I was stoked as on it because I spent so long like drawing and then rubbing out lines and drawing and whatever.
Mm-hmm.
And I remember I was stoked as on it. And like I'd draw little caricatures like with gear and bike and like that type of stuff when I was young. And then when I went off to uni, like obviously studied engineering at uni, and then did a project at uni that I won't kind of go into too much about because it's like covered up in patents and all that type of gear. And then that kind of opened my eyes to I don't know, just having a genuine interest. Not opening my eyes to opening my eyes to the fact that I did actually have a genuine interest in it, but I actually understood it as well. Like, I guess, and this goes for my writing too. Like, I've always said that I've probably got more ability than what I have confidence for.
Yeah, okay.
And it's not saying like I'm not a confident person, but I am. It might not seem it, but I'm actually like pretty shy. So if I kind of, anyway, without kind of going down, but I didn't really have a lot of trust in myself that I kind of had that ability. Like I was studying engineering and all that, but I was like, oh yeah, like whatever. And it wasn't really until I got to the end of uni and started getting out of uni, like into the real world, so to speak, that I actually kind of realized that I might, I might know a thing or two about material and design and actually putting some stuff together and whatever.
Yeah.
And second to that, like, I guess, at that point in time, like rewind a couple of years, like I'd been riding bikes, like whether it be BMX or mountain bikes or whatever, like I've been riding bikes for say 20 years. So I knew a lot about bikes. It's not saying I'm an expert mechanic or anything like that, but I just, I've seen a lot of things, I guess.
Yeah.
And I think it's every sort of boy's dream when they grow up racing BMX. Like, it'd be sick to work for a bike company. Like, I always wanted to work for Norco or like, one of those companies. So when I finished uni, like 2017, like the year after I finished uni, I was applying for bike companies through and through. Like, I applied for Specialized, I applied for Norco, like all that. Actually, I'll come back to this, but what's really funny is I remember there was this position at Norco in Vancouver in BC.
Yeah.
I applied for it and never ended up even getting an interview. And like, the bike industry kind of works. They want people because it's so niche, like they want people with heaps of experience. And I applied for this position and it needed like, say 10 years, like industrial design or mechanical engineering experience. I had like none. And I applied for this job And I remember I was so nervous that the application didn't go through. I rang them up because it didn't give me like a receipt number. So I rang them up, and the lady's like, "Oh yeah, I'll put you through to Owen." And I'd read up because at this stage the HSPs had just come out, or maybe it was the like the original Orums. But anyway, no, well, it must have been the HSPs. Yeah, that's right. Because I remember reading a lot on like Pink Bike about the development of the HSP and like how it carried over from the original Aurum and all this type of stuff. And they had talked about Owen Pemberton, who was the designer. He'd worked up at Whistler in one of the bike shops and got picked up by Norco and whatever. Anyway, she goes, "Oh, I'll put you through to Owen." And I'm like, "All right, cool." And anyway, ended up speaking to Owen on the phone. And mind you, this is like during the day in Vancouver. So it's either super late or super early in the morning in Australia. And I'm talking to him. And like, he's a really lovely dude. Like, we're just sort of having a chat, blah, blah, blah. And anyway, I never heard anything sort of back about the position. And I didn't really expect to. But he went on to be one of the founders of Forbidden.
Yep.
But what's really cool is that only like a couple of days ago, he started following WRP on Instagram.
Yeah, sick.
Like, how cool. Like, to me, like, that's,
yeah.
I might sound like a nerd here, but that is like the coolest thing ever to me. Like, I'm just
for sure,
like being a 10-year-old boy drawing bloody bikes on a scrap bit of paper. But yeah. So going back to the point is, like applied for all these bike companies, like that type of stuff, and yeah, I guess it's really funny. Like, I've said that. For a while now, it's what defines a lot of people like that took my sort of route, I guess, with going through uni and all that type of stuff. What really, I guess, defines people is the couple of years post-uni because, and I'm not saying there's anything wrong with this, like with any direction you take, there's nothing wrong with it. It's just a causality thing. It just, depends what you want. But a lot of people that took my route do one or two things, like move back to their hometown, which is fine, or they sort of stay in the town they went to uni, or they go off and, do whatever, like, use their degree to the full kind of advantage. But the couple of years following uni, I think, particularly depending on what the course is and whatever, particularly in this, like of my generation in engineering in Australia, is really hard. Like our manufacturing has all but sort of dried up here. Like to paint the picture, like I was enrolled in mechanical engineering my first year and swapped out to civil because in 2013, like Ford and Holden announced that they, as of like 2016 or 17 or whatever it was, they weren't manufacturing in Australia anymore. So everyone in my boat's like, screw that, I want a job, and I've just put down a lot of money to go to uni. Like I'm going to get into civil and just to get a job. So I guess this is like, it's such a multifaceted conversation because there's a lot of stuff that was floating around with the whole WRP thing. Yeah. But it was really born out of not wanting to I don't really know. It was kind of realizing that I guess I've got had a little bit more knowledge than what I use at work. Because as I was saying, the engineering sort of landscape within Australia is pretty dry nowadays, and that's for a whole heap of reasons. But also just because I love bikes. Honestly, I can sit in the shed and like design a part all weekend and not get bored, or whatever. Like I'm going to be, I kind of pile it all into one. Like working on WIP stuff, like obviously, like I can tell the difference, but it all just seems like riding to me because it's all just bike related. So yeah, I just kind of get stoked on it. And then the other thing, I guess, is always, because I've always kind of been a privateer, like there's always been the need to develop stuff. Like if you're a factory rider, the factory team, depending on what the factory team is, of course, but a lot of the factory guys will have what they need made for them. And like, great, like that's, and all props to them. Like those guys have deserved that support, and it's fantastic. But I guess a couple of things, like one, wanting to ride stuff that I wanted to ride that I couldn't get made by a manufacturer because I'm not a paid athlete through them. But also just, I guess, to keep my brain busy because work is at times sort of pretty dry. But to add to that, I guess, is that within kind of the commercial space, like what I do at work, the complexity of it and whatever is like, it's pretty high. And it kind of made me look at some of the bike industry stuff, and I'm like, well, there's no necessary reason why I can't really make some of this stuff just for myself, like to make my own bike riding better and whatever. Like WIP never really set out to make any money. Like I've never really been into that. Like in all honesty, and like some part of me, and this is just me, like I probably shouldn't think this way, but like I don't want to make money off. I don't really want to make money off my friends, so to speak. Like I'll never ask for anything, and that's probably one thing that I probably would like to touch on, I guess, is like, it kind of maybe it's my fault, like it's my sort of thing, but I've never hit up a bike company and been like, hey, like, can I get a discount or can I get a sponsorship, or like, it's just not what I want to do. Like, and I think from being from working kind of in just the engineering space, not the bike industry, so to speak, but now having a company that's in the bike industry, like what keeps these companies afloat is people buying their product. Like if everyone keeps asking for free shit, then the company's not going to be around anymore. And like, of course there's a time and place for people to be sponsored, like absolutely. But it does kind of, I don't know. It's just not me to ask for stuff, put it that way. Which, kind of spurred me on to make some of my own sort of things.
I think like there's a lot of people that don't understand the level you have to be to start getting free stuff from a company. Like the level is so damn high.
It's super high. And I think the other thing, without trying to go like get the conversation in too deep, I think the I don't know, like any conversation, go down a bit of a rabbit hole depending on how deep you want it to go. But I think there's this propensity for people to want to give off an image that they might be better than they are. Like, like I've got this brand on board and this brand on board, and like if I just keep asking for stuff, like I'll be pro, like I'll be sponsored, whatever. And I guess, but that's fine. But at the same time, the bike industry is pretty fickle. Like it's not. These companies aren't running on huge margins, and what keeps them going is people buying their stuff. Like and this is just personally me, is that I'd feel very self-inflated if I thought that good of myself that I'd ask a company for free stuff. Like, do you know what I mean?
Yeah.
I was like, I just don't think I'm that good. Like if someone hit me up and was like, hey, we've seen what you're doing, we're really keen to help you out, then that's great. It comes organically and it's natural.
Yeah.
But unless it comes that way, I just, I don't really buy it. And from being on the other side of it now, like actually having a company, it's incredible. Hey, like I'm, I like, honestly, like I love helping people out. Like it's the thing that I love most is actually like helping people, like not just financially or anything like that, but helping people. Like I really, really enjoy just meeting and interacting with people. And I won't name names or anything like that, but like there's been heaps of people that I've seen like online or met or whatever that I'm like, like I really want to help this kid out. Like I'll send him or him or her or whatever if they've hit me up for a part, but they're like a teenager and can't afford it or whatever, and it's like not much skin off my teeth. Like I'll send them part for free just to surprise. Like it makes me happy. On the contrary, you've got people that'll hit you up and not even like, hey, or how are you, or really interested in your stuff. Like, you should sponsor me. And it's like, dude, like, do you know how this works? Like, and it's not.
It is absolutely insane, some of the messages that get sent.
Oh, dude, it's incredible. But yeah, anyway.
Yeah, I mean, I'm lucky enough. I won't name names because they probably shouldn't be sharing this, but they have screenshotted and sent me a bunch of messages before.
Yeah.
And I'm legitimately like, what? Like, it doesn't even. Like,
honestly, it makes me happier to know. It makes me honestly happier to know that I've like bought bikes outright to keep the industry going than what it would make me if I was like lying in bed at night thinking like I've got this stuff for free and I've asked for it, which means I may not necessarily deserve it, because if I really deserved it, the company would have hit me up. And at the same time, because I've got it for free, I'm not contributing to the industry that I love, type thing. That kind of sounds weird, but that's just me.
Yeah. And I think it's kind of about building relationships as well. Like, you can't just go and ask for a sponsorship straight off the bat. Like, you can't. I don't know. With everyone that supports the show, I feel like, I hope I've built a good relationship with them beforehand.
Sure.
You know?
Yeah, and I think the other thing, and again, this might go down a bit of a rabbit hole, but I think the other thing is that's a little bit misleading is this whole sort of social media thing, because I think it's so easy to share content now about riding and about this, and like, I'm not dissing it. Like, it's a good thing, but like too much of anything, I guess, is bad for you. But like, I think it can give an artificial view of maybe riding ability and that type of stuff.
Easily.
Like, and maybe I look at it kind of too authentically, but like, props to the guys that are making a living off putting videos out on stuff. But part of it doesn't seem authentic to me. But
oh, you can easily like edit stuff. Like, it's insane what you can put on a camera. And make it look way gnarlier than what it is. Yeah,
like, and I'm probably too much one way, like the other way, where like I post a fair bit on my company stuff just because like it's something larger than just myself. I'm trying to promote it, like, and I see it for what it is. Like, I am trying to promote it, but like on my personal page, like, I've always thought like it dumbfounds me sometimes, because I'll go out and ride on a weekend and like not get one video or picture or whatever, which like that's my choice. But sometimes I think, like, I look at some of the videoing that people do, I'm like, dude, like, that would eat me up inside knowing that I could have got to like 10 more runs by the time it took me to, like, I would just, maybe it's a conscientious thing, but I'd just be like, I just want to ride more. Like, I'm sick of sitting here with the camera. Just let me ride.
There's so many different like fathoms, right? Because like, I'll go out and do maybe like 10 short runs and bust out like the same corner 10, 15 times, but film one of them. That's yeah. And then I'll just film it and I'll get like a 1 second clip. Like for a whole hour of roosting corners. And it's just true.
And that, like, that's it. Absolutely. Yeah, there's got to be a lot of background footage to get like a 5-minute video.
Yeah.
And like, video's sick. Like, I'm not dissing them at all, but I think sometimes, particularly for the kids, like for the younger, just go out and ride for the sake of just love riding, like, irrespective of whether you get a picture of it or not. Like,
yeah, exactly. And like, so you started with stems? No, you started with the links, right?
Nah. So I'll go. Yeah. So
all right.
I'll go back a little bit for you. So, when's this going to come out, by the way?
Probably like 1st or 2nd of January.
Oh yeah. Okay. So it kind of it came about by I've always tinkered around with parts, always just tinkered around with parts to try to make stuff better, and like not just tinkering too, just I don't know, thinking up ideas. And my old man loves ideas. Like he's an engineer, but I don't know, he's like a really open thinker. Just loves chatting about I don't know ways of doing stuff, different ways of doing stuff. So we've always talked about stuff like that. And then the biggest one really was, well, the thing that really kickstarted it was that when Jacko and I were driving from Snowshoe back to Cali for the US Open, we obviously had a lot of time to talk shit and just chill. And I've forgotten how it kind of came up now, but so last year, like 2019, was the first year that the UCI allowed, like they lifted the regulation in the rule book that you had to run the same size front and rear wheel.
Yeah, yep.
So obviously, a lot of people were coming out with mullets.
Mm-hmm.
Factory teams were coming out with mullets, or guys were butchering bikes. And this sort of goes back to my point before about sort of being a privateer. And you can buy good equipment being a privateer. Like, don't get me wrong, but there's also the separation between what privateers have access to and the factory guys. And if you want to look at that at like an nth degree, it's like moto. Like moto is just that on steroids. Like
moto is a whole other ball game. Like
the bike that Eli Tomac is on compared to the top privateer, it's like a different sport. Like and I'm not saying downhill's like that, but there's certainly a bit that plays into it. Like I don't know this is a fact. Like I don't know, but I would put money to bet on that there wouldn't have been a privateer last year on the World Cup that was on a mixed wheel size. Like they were on a stock, either a 27 or a 29. So we were driving home from Snowshoe, and we were just talking about mixed wheel size because Danny Hart won Snowshoe on a 27 rear, 29 front. And we were just talking about it, like blah, 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 whatever. And my downhill bikes are Commencal Supremes, which I don't know, I love them. I reckon they're the best downhill bikes on the planet. I'm not saying that because any other reason, but I just love them. And up until this year, they had removable dropouts, like bolt-on dropouts.
Yes, correct. Yeah.
And I'm like, well, if you made another set of dropouts, you could just move the axle position to run a 27. The only thing that it kind of mucks with is your axle height relative to your bottom bracket, because you don't want, like, what you don't want is your axle, like when the bike's static, you don't want your bottom bracket to be higher than your axle, if you know what I mean.
Yeah.
Like mostly bikes, like when they measure a bottom bracket, it's measured in, like, say, my Meta. I think the bottom bracket drop, like, I can't remember the exact number, but it's like, just say it's 30 mil. Like
around 30, 32, I think.
Yeah. Bottom bracket drop comparative to your axle. So you don't want to, like, mess it up too much where, like, it just feels like a pig. But I was like, I can't remember what the numbers are for the Supreme now, because it was like 12 months or 12, 15 months ago now since I was actually designing it. But you had a little bit of room to move with the Supremes, to move the axle around. So moved it down sort of to the maximum amount that wouldn't really mess up kinematics and that. And made a set of dropouts for myself, like purely just for myself. Like I didn't really have a plan of WRP ever really coming into existence. Made a set of dropouts for myself, whacked them on my bike, and I thought I'd just make a post about it because I was like, oh, it's kind of cool. Like I sent them to Jacko, and he's like, yeah, that's real cool. And I took it for a ride first, obviously, and I'm like, this actually rides sick. It doesn't feel like it's bucking me over the front or anything. Like changing the axle position, like only, that amount doesn't really mean anything. And the other thing too is because you're running a smaller wheel, it means I can move the axle position not just down but forward a bit too, so slam the rear end a bit more. And And yeah, it felt wicked. So I posted on Instagram, and people kind of got around it. And I had a lot of people hit me up from within the bike industry, like just riders and whatever, being like, "That's really cool. Like, do you have the capability to do that?" And I'm like, "Yeah, like it's it took me
clearly,
a day or two on the pad and get up tool paths and whatever." And then I had a couple of people hit me up because this was about this time last year, and Common Sale was still like 4 or 5 months off actually bringing out their mullet, and not a lot of people knew that they were actually coming out with a mullet. So yeah, a few people wanted them, so I'm like, oh, all right, I'll make a few more, and then it kind of steamrolled a little bit, and then the second one was because this was sort of pre-coronavirus, so I thought that Four-Cross Worlds might have gone ahead again this year, and the NS frame that I was on was way too short, so I wanted to get back on my Common Sale frame.
Mm-hmm.
But the Common Sale was a 135 by 10 mil rear end.
Yeah.
And like you can botch it up to kind of have it run gears, like whatever. But basically, it had a shit hub, and it didn't have a hanger and all that type of stuff. So I could buy some stuff off Common Sale to possibly make it work. But I was like, well, screw this. I'd rather run like old DH standard, like a 142 by 12 through axle, because it's stiffer, and that way I can get a good DT hub, because I love DT wheels are the best. So I can run like a good DT hub and all that, and I can machine a hanger into it. So the second thing was making a custom set of 142 by 12 bolt-on dropouts for my Absolute.
Yep.
Which was kind of cool. I've only sold one other set of them, which that's fine.
Pretty niche.
Yeah, it's niche as it's just that I have that model and I wanted to be able to run it. So, and then I don't know. I just kept having people hit me up about stuff like, oh, what about, could you make this and could you make that? And and the Supreme dropouts were like, I don't know, I'd make one every now and then. And I was like, oh, and then kind of COVID came around, and I had all this free time, not because of work stuff, but just because I was working from home. So, for instance, just commute time alone, I was basically getting an extra weekend a month.
Yeah, right.
If it's half an hour each way, at least, you add that up, over a month, you've basically got 2 days just taken up in commute time. So, I had what seemed like a whole heap of extra time and lunch breaks and that where I could sort of do what I wanted. So, then made the yoke for the Meta. So the yoke just could run because I'm not a tall dude. Well, I'm not short either, but I'm not tall by any means. So 29, I just buzz my ass on a 29. I can't ride it. So made a yoke for the 29 for the Meta TR 29er just to make it a mullet. But it also has other sort of kinematic changes which I really like. I've done the maths and whatever on it, and I really like it. And then to be honest with you, the big one, which kind of come out of nowhere, was just Andrew Howison kind of hit me up for a similar thing as the Meta, but it's a smaller yoke, but just to be able to mullet his Specialized. Yeah, I'm like, dude, no worries. That's a piece of piss. We can do that, no worries.
Yeah.
And it's kind of funny. I actually haven't posted this on social media or whatever, but we've done that totally virtually. I've never laid a hand on his bike.
Yeah. Okay.
Which is really funny. He took some measurements for him. I did some maths, sort of ran some numbers and stuff, and come up with a yoke design that I thought would work. And, sent him it. He bolted it up, and it worked. And that's pretty well, and then it went through one revision, because the first one was just a prototype to make sure it fitted, so it didn't have any flip chip bevels in it and stuff like that. Yep. So just 2 seconds on CAD pretty much just to include that stuff. And And to be honest with you, that's probably what's gained the most traction, because a lot of people have Specialized and it's kind of cool. But now, yeah, I've kind of got a few products out there now. So a few people hit me up for, once they saw the 2021 Meta mullet link, they wanted one for the predecessor model, so 1920. So I made one for that. And then, yeah, messed around with a chain guide kind of thing, just again for fun, because I thought it was neat. But yeah, people kind of pounced on that because they thought it looked neat. And then the stems have been recent, but they're, for some reason, people love stems. I think it's like everyone sees them, so it's like every bike's got one, so people want a trick stem. I've kind of got a couple of ideas in the works that I think will be really cool as well, which I hope to release sort of in the next couple of weeks. But yeah, so Dave Habbage hit me up for a stem just because he wanted something that was 50 mil reach but had a low stack, because he wanted low bars.
Yeah, okay.
And the other thing is because he runs like an internal headset. It's got like a really large headset diameter. It's like 60 mil.
Yeah, okay. Yep.
So he always had to run spacers under his stem. So like he could buy a DD or whatever, like 50 mil with a relatively low stack. I think the DDs are 30 mil stack.
It would top out on the frame.
Yeah, it would top out on the frame. So he'd have to put spacers under. So he wanted something that would clear it. So yeah, that was no worries. Helped him out with that. Got him a stem, and seemed kind of pretty stoked on it. So, and since kind of that's become public knowledge, like it's been on Instagram and whatever, heaps of people hit me up for a stem, because I don't really know why. I think they must look trick or something. But yeah, the stems, by the time this airs, the stems will be live kind of on the website to buy. And it's kind of cool. I'll without sort of giving too much away, like part of the whole WRP thing is like I want to help sort of privateers in the industry that have like their own kind of idea too. So like I want to help him out a little bit, because that stem was his design. Like I obviously designed it, but all the design input was him. Like he wanted the dimensions, he wanted the cutouts here, and he wanted that, and that kind of makes me happy. So stems have been cool. And I think like I've kind of thought about it for the last week or so, is when you think about it, like the frame is a set geometry. Like a GT had their iDrive 15 years ago where you could change like the bottom bracket position, but like that's kind of redundant now. But you can't change your position in your bottom bracket. A lot of the time now with enclosed dropouts, like you can't change the position in your axle, so that's not going to change. But like the only other contact point, and arguably the most important contact point, is where your bars sit. And when you think about it, like there are a lot of stems on the market, but a lot of them come in pretty standard kind of sizes and whatever. So if you want a custom stem, there's really not many people out there that can do that for you. Whereas, I don't know, I'm willing to make sort of anything. Like if you want like a really quirky size, like if you're like, I want a 37.5 reach.
Yeah.
Because I don't like a 35 and I don't like a 40, but I want something in the middle. Like that's just as easy for me to do as any other sort of.
Yeah, exactly.
So, and I think that's why the stems kind of take off, because people kind of know that. They're like, oh, this little part, like even though it's little, it makes such a big difference with how the bike feels. So, yeah.
It's weird. The bike industry only operates in 10 and 5 mil lengths. There's no such thing as 1 mil, especially in mountain bikes.
And the other, I don't know. Again, this is, you go down a rabbit hole, but compared to like other industries, like car industry or motorbike industry or like whatever, the bike industry, like they've come a long way. Like metric came a long way, but like with shocks. But yeah, there's still a lot that just dumbfounds me. Like, I don't know. Yeah, dropout spacing, like axle spacing, still, yeah, it still makes me laugh sometimes. Like boost and all that sort of like,
Yeah.
like there's legible reasons for it. Don't get me wrong, but just the inconsistencies among sort of companies and generations too. Like even like you buy something that's just a couple of years old now and it's ancient, but
Yeah.
at the same time, probably shouldn't be too hard on it because the bike industry is progressing at a rate where, like, I don't know whether this is accurate or not, but I kind of look at the mountain bike industry in the current sort of environment, almost like the surf industry went back through in the 80s where development was like booming.
Yeah.
I feel as though mountain biking might be kind of in a similar thing. Like you only have to look, was it 2014, which isn't that long ago? Like, bloody hell.
Yeah.
2014 to me isn't that long ago at all. And people are on 26-inch wheels. And like,
exactly.
Downhill now, and people are like, what?
Yeah.
Yeah. So,
yeah. And it's funny, like we're in back in 2014 or even like 2013, you were happy if your cranks didn't snap off. Or like your frame didn't crack. Whereas now everything is perfect. Like we're pretty damn spoiled. So bottom bracket width is the biggest problem. Like,
yeah, and like that's the other thing kind of with the whole WRP thing too is I 100% what you like hear what you're saying, and the bike industry has come a long way, but I'm still, maybe this is me just being a bit patriotic, but yeah, I don't know. My toes curl when people say like I made in China or made in Taiwan or whatever. Like that's all well and good. It's nothing against that, but for a broader kind of landscape, like not just this bike industry, but the engineering industry kind of in general, I just think it's really hurting that we're not making stuff in Australia or, like say the US outsourcing stuff or whatever. And that's kind of like with me, I'm like, I don't care if I never make money off it, but I just want to make stuff that's authentic and make it locally and have it made by someone that rides and loves riding. And if that helps the community back in some way, then that's good.
Because you have to be the only Australian-made component company, right?
I got asked that yesterday, and I'd never even thought about it before. And I didn't.
Because I know there's frame makers, but I don't know of any component makers.
I didn't want to say yes because I was like, surely not. Like I almost didn't believe it. I'm like, surely not. But I had thought about it for 5 or 10 minutes, and I'm like, well, I can't name another one. So by default, I guess yeah.
Yeah. I can't think of anything. There is a friend of mine, Will Freeland.
Yeah.
And he will message me as soon as he hears this, and he'll be like, there was an Australian manufacturer or something in 1963 that did this and did this. He's like the Rain Man of mountain biking in Australia.
Yeah.
And he'll just be able to quote something. But I can't personally think of any other component manufacturers or designers in Australia.
Yeah, I don't know. And that just kind of trips me out because in general, like Aussies are so, like, I don't know, Aussies are creative. Like we come up with the Hills Hoist. But,
yeah.
You know what I mean? Like Aussies have done heaps of cool shit, like over heaps of industries. And like we're always thinking outside the box and like in some ways kind of the underdogs because we're, I don't know, a long way from the US and Europe, whether that be with racing or making parts, like we're kind of always the underdog, but like it just kind of surprises me. I never thought about it. Like I never came into it thinking, I want to be the only manufacturer. Like, that's not the case at all. Like, as I was saying, like it was literally yesterday someone asked me, I'm like, it tripped me out. I'm like, surely not. But there is a friend of mine that I should give a shout out actually, who's not mountain biking but road cycling. So Partington, if you're into road cycling, definitely look at Partington wheels. So I've got space. Basically, one of the reasons that this whole WRP thing was doable was that I've got pretty pretty close connections with Deakin University, was kind of where I studied, and they have given me sort of space to call the company home, I guess. So I've got office space and stuff like that, and access to some very intelligent people and machinery and whatever.
Yeah.
But John, who owns Partington, basically, it was only today actually they shipped their first product, even though they've had protos out there for a while. But they're making custom carbon road cycle wheels, complete wheels.
Yes,
and they are changing the game, in my opinion. Like, we go into the whole engineering behind it, but very, very smart bunch of dudes. Like, they've got Cadell Evans on board and stuff. So
sick,
yeah. So to give a shout out to another Aussie componentry company, it might not be mountain biking and it might be sort of niche, but they're certainly doing good things.
Technically, I should say that Baumeister as well. Baumeister wheels from Adelaide.
Yeah.
But he sold out. He went to Crank Brothers.
Oh, really? Yeah, okay.
Yeah, no, just kidding. He'll hear this. Yeah. But those Baumeister wheels were insane. He should have just kept going with those.
Yeah.
I saw them, one of their pro riders, or one of their test riders, bent a maxle before the wheel broke. Yeah.
Really?
It was insane. Yeah.
Yeah, it's pretty hard to do.
But yeah, I can't think of any. Yeah. Is Deakin University, is that where Engineered to Slide is as well? Or is that someone else?
Yeah, my spot's right next to Engineered to Slide. So Nigel.
God damn it. That'd be amazing.
Yeah, so Nigel's a good mate of mine. He's
sick.
He's a legend. Like, I'll give him a shout while I'm here.
Yeah.
No, he's honestly one of the most genuine dudes. And what's really funny, and I'd known Nigel like on kind of professional basis for a little bit, and I always like admired him. Like, he's kind of a hero. But he grew up. I think it's Camperdown. He's going to shoot me if it's not Camperdown, but I think it's Camperdown. He grew up because he's. I'm not exactly sure of the age difference, but he's say 10 years older than me, and he's like best mates with a lot of guys that I was really close with riding back in Warrnambool. But because I was kind of a generation below him, I never really knew him. Like, he'd moved up to Geelong before, like, when I was just growing up.
Because he's a shredder on a bike. Like,
mate, and he doesn't talk about it either. Like, he's really low key. But dude can steer a bike. Like, he was up at Bright the other weekend, and I didn't ride with him. I was up there as well. But I saw some of his GoPro stuff, and I'm like, dude can steer. He can steer a car too. But he's good. Like, I was because we've both got like one of our mutual friends who we're really close with, and I've known Steve since I was like 10. Steve is a mutual tax accountant for both of us, and like I was in at Nigel's the other day, and we were just talking about bike design, and he got a call from Steve, and Steve's like, what are you working on? And Nigel's like, just his bike design. And Steve goes, do you know of Mick? You should hit him up if you don't know him. And Nigel goes, yeah, he's standing here. And what do you mean? And he's like, what do you mean standing where? And Nigel's like, in my office, like he's here now. And it's really funny because, I talked to Steve a couple of weeks after that to do my own tax. Steve's like, how random's that? And Steve's a legend, but he was telling me stories like, the first time like Nigel had never even TIG welded until because they're about the same age, and they were down at a skate park or whatever, and Steve's old man had a TIG welder. So Nigel came around and spent the whole day in the shed TIG welding up the car or something. And Steve was like, it's so funny because, my place was the first time, Nigel had TIG welded, and now he is where he is. But, it is a small world. It's really funny.
Yeah, if anyone listening has not gone out and watched and read like the Lolux blog You have to read that thing page for page, and it is so good.
Yeah.
And I can't believe he's like self-taught, and just everything he does is so good.
He's a goer, man. Like he I really admire him because I don't know. He works real hard. Like he's obviously a smart person and sort of knows what he wants. But I really admire people that like are high in conscientiousness. Like they just work really hard. I've always kind of been drawn to those people because I don't know. I don't know, and that's why I like that. It's the same thing with privateers. Like that's why I've got so much sort of. I guess it takes a privateer to know a privateer, but like got so much respect for the privateers and kind of want to help them out with parts and stuff as well because like they're the most hardworking dudes in the pits. Like they're wrenching on their bikes, they're booking their accommodation, they're booking their flights, they're driving to the races. Like I don't know.
Yeah.
You haven't met a hardworking person until you've met a hardworking privateer.
Exactly. Yeah. And the pros don't need anymore. That's for sure.
Well, I should say, like, you know, and this is like a Win Masters thing. Like, all the best pro riders come from privateer background. Like, anyway, won't go into it, but yeah, they're for sure. Like his story, kind of while I'm on it, like his story is inspiring by itself. Like both the Masters boys, but like Win's story is like really inspiring because it's like it's that full.
He was a privateer and just
story, like it's just hard work. Like keep grinding, and
exactly. He's just worked his way to where he was or where he is.
Yeah, that's exactly right. And it's like that's really, really humbling to see. I think it's good
for sure. And if you're surrounding yourself with those people, then it only just reflects onto you, right? And transfers to you.
I think the other thing is too, like, Win's like such a genuine, nice dude. Like, you see him in a race or whatever, and he's like, like obviously with the stuff that he did this year with the whole like privateer bonuses and stuff like that, and getting Shimano to help guys out and all that type of stuff. Because whether the UCI kind of like it or not, I think privateers are kind of the backbone of racing.
100%.
The privateers, they wouldn't be getting their entry money. So
the top guys are roughly 1/3 of competition, if that. So
I don't. It'd be funny to see kind of like the tallies. Like I know, like for Downhill World Cup, because I guess it's like it's the elite of the elite. Like the factory dudes dominate kind of the field. Like they have a fair proportion of it, but like among the EW, I think you've seen a lot more privateers now racing the EWSs.
100%. Yeah.
Like you get more riding spark for one. Like that's one massive thing.
Not that I ever want to do that much riding in one day for racing anyway.
Yeah, I've never raced enduro. I'm yet to get there. I want to race it, but
you got to do it. It's good.
Yeah, I've been around a couple of my mates like at race events, and I've seen the pain they go through. It's like,
we had a few boys here like training for it, and just 5 or 6 hour rides because that's the only. Plus, like I think one of their rides was 8 hours because that's the only way they can get the elevation. Close, like here.
Well, I was going to say, what's the highest elevation in Adelaide? It's not that big, is it?
Like 430, 450 or something like that.
Yeah, that's still decent.
It's like an hour climb for me.
Yeah.
So for those guys, it's like half hour. So
Where is that, out at Fox Creek or Wollonga or something? Or
biggest hill here would be Eagle on the Hill.
Eagle, yeah.
Wollonga is like 200, if that. Wollonga's actually a small hill, and Fox would be. I worked it out because I want to do Everest descending at Fox on an e-bike for something stupid.
Yeah, that'd be sick. Yeah,
it's pretty gnarly. Well, Fox doesn't exist at the moment, so
because it's not burnt out, hey.
But I think it was just over 300.
Yeah,
like it was something. It was to do it like in time. It was 24 hours to the dot. If I did it right, it was pretty gnarly.
My brother lives over in Adelaide, so I'll come over. I'll do it with you.
Yeah. We'll get some e-bikes and we'll get it happening.
Suffer the pain together.
Oh, it'll be brutal.
Yeah.
Easy, man. We might start wrapping things up so I don't have to
Yeah,
stitch
mate.
too many more of these together.
Yeah.
I'd like to end it with kind of 3 questions.
Yeah, go for it.
What advice would you give to anyone that kind of wants to go racing? I guess go racing, start their own company, and you kind of touched on it before, but get sponsored or get help from a company.
Well, I'll break it down. So I guess anyone that wants to go racing, I think you've got to be doing it for the right reasons. For one, and the right reasons, I guess, is just to love riding. Like, if you've been putting in the time and you've been training and whatever, then that's good. I think the biggest thing with racing, and again, this is such a multifaceted question, but because it obviously depends on the level, I think, there are 2 main points that, and I'm not going to say I'm an expert, but I've had a little bit of experience with it. But 2 main points, like whatever you think it's going to cost, double it. Particularly with mountain biking, because shit comes up. Like you'll break a wheel, or it'll be pissing rain and you don't have a set of mud tires and you got to buy a set, or something. You'll snap a stem, something. So whatever you think it's going to cost, double it. The next thing is, and I think this is for individuals to work out, but it's I'll reflect on sort of my take of it. And I feel as though there's a time and place to be either conservative or jump in the deep end. And I'll say, say with BMX, there was a time when I touched on it, when sort of I was racing junior elite, and I was relatively competitive junior elite, but I wasn't winning races at junior elite. And that was a time to be conservative as far as when I transferred out of junior elite, raced some age classes and that type of stuff, and built my way up to racing elite men at kind of a World Cup level. So that was a time to be conservative. But there's also a point in time where you'll never be ready. So you've also got to just seize the opportunity and grab it. Say, for instance, with my first World Cup at Leo Gang, I wasn't ready at all. I'd only been racing mountain bike for 6 months. Legit, I had no idea really about setup or stuff like that. But I'd qualified, and I was well, either go and dwell on not going, or either not go and dwell on it, or I go and learn a bunch of stuff, and I might get smashed. And I didn't get smashed as bad as I thought I did, so that was a positive. But I guess back to the point, I think some people sometimes too conservative, where I see such good riders, really, really, really good riders locally who are winning and doing really well, but aren't prepared to take the next step and chuck themselves in the deep end. And to me, that's waste. I've seen people way better riders than me, for instance, who are a little bit, timid on sort of taking the leap. So I think the biggest tip with racing is, one, whatever you think is going to cost, double it, but also have a bit of a, I don't know what you call it, moral compass, I guess, with where your riding ability is at and whether it's a good time to be conservative or take the plunge. And I think that depends on age and obviously ability, but age is one. And the other thing is, do it, like I said, do it for the right reasons. And the right reasons are that you love it. And I think the biggest mistake that I see of kids, and I think this comes back to that balance of being conservative or taking the plunge. Some people maybe take the plunge too early and burn themselves out and end up getting to 18 or 19 and just quitting. Keep it fresh and just do it for the right reasons. Do it so you're not going to hate it. There's no point taking the plunge massively and spending your life fortune on going racing a World Cup season if you're not ready, and then getting home and resenting it, because then you'll quit straight away. But yeah, it's a double-edged sword. But then, yeah, I guess on starting a business, I don't know. I really don't know. Like, the biggest thing is, I would say, is just to be authentic. Like, it's kind of that old adage that if you can't have it with honesty, you never had it to begin with, which is something that I really like. And that's kind of the whole WRP thing, is like, it's just authentic. It's just because I love riding, I love making parts, and if other people are stoked on the parts that I'm making, then that makes me happy. So yeah, it's just about authenticity, and it makes me happy. And what was your third one?
Sponsorship.
Oh, sponsorship.
Yeah.
I don't know. Well, I guess it comes back to the same thing. Like, do it for the right reasons. Do it out of like honesty to yourself, that you're staying authentic. And I think that goes back to the whole social media thing. Is that I think that certainly there are social media stuff that's authentic. Like, don't get me wrong. Like, if Brandon Semenuk puts out a Raw 100, that's as authentic as you can get. The dude, like, is a god on a bike, and it's like, you need to capture that stuff. Don't get me wrong. But yeah, sometimes I think, like, go out and ride for the love of riding, and because you want to get better at it, not necessarily just because you want to be seen on social media doing it. But yeah, and like the other thing, I don't know. The other thing is, like, be patient. Like, you got a long time. And maybe I'm not the best person to ask, because I'm maybe a little bit too shy with asking people for help. Like, there's probably been time where I certainly needed to ask people for help, or reached out to a company, or whatever. I've most certainly raced at a level where I've probably been entitled to reach out to a company, but it doesn't really make me feel comfortable. But yeah, I think that's the biggest one. Stay authentic, and don't try to blow yourself up staying authentic to for one, why you're doing it. Like, I'm riding because like, and you see this all the time, like, people pick up sponsorship, like, with brand ambassador deals and stuff, out of being honest with their ability. Like, I'm not trying to fucking race a World Cup. Like, I'm just like, I love riding, and I a like good community representative, and I help out the kids at the local bike park, and blah 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 blah. And the brand gets about that because it's like, that's honest and it's authentic and whatever. Like, that's really good. Whereas, sometimes, and I think to lead that into sort of the social media thing, I think that's where sometimes kids of the younger generation get a little bit caught up in it, because I think you can make yourself look like you're a lot better on social media than you otherwise might be. Or it can be a little bit misleading. I think, it can be a little bit of a self-fulfilling prophecy. Like, you put yourself up on social media doing something, and it's like, and it's not to diss it at all, but it's sometimes I think it can be a bit of a false sense of reality. But staying authentic, I think, is the biggest thing.
100%.
But like, as someone, and this is, I guess, to put the shoe on the other foot, like, I guess that's coming from an athlete's point of view, from someone that now owns, like, a bicycle componentry company. Authenticity is, like, the biggest thing. Like, I don't, like, if I'm going to help you, like I was saying, like, I've sent stuff to people for free before, a lot of times, just because I've seen them around or whatever, and they love riding bikes. It doesn't matter if they're good or they're bad or whatever. They just love it, and they get about it, and they're liking my stuff or whatever. I'm like, that's really cool. Whereas, like, obviously there comes a point in time where you reach a certain threshold where you're you're good enough that you want your components on their stuff. But I mean, if you get hit up and it's like not even a hello or I like your stuff, it's just like, you should sponsor me. I don't care how good you are. I'm not giving you a free part.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, 100%. Is there anything up until now that you would have changed, or do you regret anything up until now, or has it all been a good path?
That's a good question. I think it's healthy to like reflect on the past to like learn what you can do in the future to mitigate that or whatever. It's a good question. I think I made all the decisions that I made at the time based on the information that I had at the time. So what I was saying before about, either looking at things conservatively or jumping in the deep end, like I made that decision at the time. I think for me, what I would like change or what I would be critical about of myself is like like I'm relatively kind of agreeable, so I'm not really which kind of I think manifests itself into kind of being shy and probably taking the conservative option more than taking the plunge option, which I think can be really good in some ways. But I think if there was things that I would have changed, I probably, I don't know, probably should have jumped into things harder while backing myself a little bit more. Like I was saying, I probably, and it's not like being cocky at all, like I probably have a little bit more have a little bit more sort of possibility than sometimes I give myself credit for. So
yeah, completely understand that for sure.
Back yourself.
For sure. And last question is always the hardest for a lot of people. It seems. What music do you listen to if you're kind of trying to get motivated for something, or if you're writing, or?
No, that's a great question. I'll answer it by saying it depends on the mood. Because legit. Because I did this thing. It was actually back in year 11 PE, and I thought like it stuck with me because I think it's really important, and that's like the performance of athletes depending on their arousal curve. So it's like a bell curve, and your peak arousal is like somewhere in the middle. So if you're feeling low, like if you're not G'd up, you're not going to do well, obviously. But if you're too G'd up, like if you had 20 coffees and your arousal curve's just like boosted to one end, like you're also going to do well. Like you're going to be overriding everything. And like I actually really like music. Like I'm a closet guitar player. Like I love playing guitar, even though you wouldn't say it. So, I'm a big music fan, and it depends whether I'm trying to G myself up or calm myself down. I'm a classic AC/DC fan. Like if I'm trying to G myself up, AC/DC is, that's a go-to. Like I was like this time last year, I'll say now, like I'm not by any means like a freestyle guy.
Yeah.
Like I'll flow big jumps. Like I love flowing. Like I love dirt jumping and doing whips and stuff. But I'm certainly not a spin guy.
Yeah.
Even though I love backies. Like it's my only trick, but I have a decent backy.
Yeah.
And I was messing around. We've got this airbag. The boys and I have chipped in for this airbag.
Yeah.
And it's pretty mean. Like it's big. And I was messing around on double flips for a while because I used to be able to double flip on a BMX. I never did it to a lander, but like I used to be able to double flip to foam and that. And always kind of thought about it on a mountain bike, and it's a totally different because mountain bike's so big and the wheelbase is long and whatever, it's hard to tuck in. But AC/DC, like for those about to rock, that was like my go-to tune at the top of the roll-in. It's a good one. Right, we're in the middle because they pick up the tempo. They go to like a double beat.
Yeah, okay.
And that's a go-to. But man, I'm all over the place. I'll give Mike Ross a shout out actually because he's a Greta Van Fleet fan, and I'm into Greta Van Fleet at the moment. They're really good. but yeah, it depends on the mood, dude. Like I was saying, I'm a closet guitar player, so I actually people kill me for this, but I actually really like acoustic stuff too. So if I'm finding myself peaking too much, I'll put on something.
Chill out.
So, actually, this is a funny story for you. Well, I'll give you one last one. I was over at the office a while ago, which is Richard Swindlehurst's place.
Yep. Okay.
And he's got like a full slope course set up,
Mm-hmm.
and it's real fun. Like those boys go hard too. Like yeah, cork 720s and all that type of stuff that I just don't want a part to do with. But
yeah,
I'll flow through and do a couple of backies and stuff. And it was one of these days. I don't know if it was for those about to rock, but it was one of these days where I had AC/DC or whatever on, and I had my phone in my pocket, like on my Spotify, but I didn't press the locks. I had something like I don't know where it was for those about to rock, but it was AC/DC or something to G me up, and it was so funny. Like literally got to the top of the ramp, like pulled back for a backy, and got upside down, and it flicked I forgot to press the lock screen, so I flicked the shuffle, and Oasis Wonderwall came on.
Yeah,
like I like the song. Like don't get me wrong, it's a nice song and it's fun to play on the guitar and whatever. But in that moment, it's pretty depressing to be like, and it just changed the mood instantly. I was like, oh no. I was like, yeah, I tucked in for that one. I was pulling around hard because I was like, oh, yeah. Anyway, and the boys couldn't believe. I told the boys, and they're like, oh, why you even got that song on your Spotify? I'm like, oh, it depends on the mood. It's all right.
Yeah. There is no mood. Yeah, no, that's good. Oh man.
Yeah, no, I do like listening to music when I ride though.
It is good. Yeah, some people don't do it. I love it. It's good. So
I think I think like I was saying before, everything's a double-edged sword. Like I got in a rut for a while where I couldn't ride without music. It seemed boring, and that's not good. That's not good either. I think a healthy mix is good.
Yeah. Easy, man. Well, we got through it. Thanks so much for 2 hours of your time for probably about an hour and 15 of podcasts. No
worries, mate. Like, like I was saying, I just love to have a yarn. So sorry if I went off down a rabbit hole and started talking a bit of smack, but I like having a yarn. I love a good story. So
no, it's good. It's all good.
We'll catch up for a beer next time in Adelaide or something.
Yeah, for sure, 100%. Or if I'm in Melbourne.
Yeah, well, I'm actually in Adelaide over the Christmas holidays. So.
Oh, sick! Yeah, right. Hit me up. I might be keen for a beer. Oh, I think I'm. Yeah, just hit me up. I got a few things on, but yeah.
I'll have my bike anyway. So.
Oh, sick! I can puff and try and keep up with you up a hill.
Yeah. Let me know if you want to stem too.
Yeah, sick. I will. Yeah. Easy, man. Thanks so much for this, and I'll keep in touch.
Good on you, mate. Chat to you soon.
Yes. No worries.
Bye. See ya.